You know that person who apologizes for things that have nothing to do with them. Someone bumps into them in a crowded hallway, they say sorry. They ask a question in a meeting, they start with sorry. Someone else is having a bad day. They apologize for that too, as if their very presence in the situation is something that requires an apology. Maybe you know someone exactly like this. Or maybe that person is you. And if it is, you've probably heard the same thing more times than you can count. Stop apologizing so much. You don't have to say sorry for everything. Why do you always apologize when you haven't done anything wrong? People point it out like it's a habit you could just drop, like you're not aware of it. But here's what most people don't understand. Constant apologizing rarely has anything to do with actually feeling guilty. Most of the time, it runs much deeper than that. And once you understand the psychology behind it, you'll never hear an unnecessary sorry the same way again. Let's start with something simple. For most people, an apology is a response to a specific event. You did something wrong. You acknowledge it. You say sorry. The apology is proportional to the situation. It has a clear beginning and a clear end. But for people who apologize for everything, the apology isn't really about the event. It's about managing the space they take up in the world. It's a way of saying, I know I might be too much. I know I might be in your way. I know my needs might be inconvenient, and I'm sorry for all of it, before you even have the chance to be bothered by it. Psychologists describe this as preemptive apologizing. It's not guilt for something that happened. It's anxiety about something that might. The sorry comes first as a shield before anyone has the chance to express disappointment, frustration, or disapproval. Because if you apologize first, you take away their reason to be upset with you. Or at least, that's how it feels. But here's the part many people misunderstand. People who over-apologize are not weak. They're not simply insecure in a surface-level way. They are often some of the most considerate, perceptive people in any room. They notice when something shifts in someone's tone. They pick up on tension before it becomes visible. They are acutely aware of how their actions land on other people. That awareness is a genuine strength. It makes them thoughtful. It makes them careful. It makes them the kind of person who almost never causes harm carelessly. The problem is that the same sensitivity that makes them so attuned to others also makes them hypersensitive to the possibility of causing discomfort. So the apology becomes a reflex, not a confession of wrongdoing, but a constant attempt to keep the emotional temperature around them stable. But sometimes this pattern goes deeper than personality. Sometimes people learn to apologize very early in life. Maybe they grew up in an environment where conflict felt dangerous, where someone's mood could shift the entire atmosphere of a home, where walking on eggshells wasn't a metaphor but a daily reality. And in that environment, a quick sorry could diffuse things. It could soften a moment before it escalated. It could smooth over tension before it became something worse. So they learned. Say sorry fast. Say sorry first. Say sorry even when you're not sure why, because the alternative felt too risky to find out. And it worked. The apology kept things calm. The apology kept people from getting angry. The apology made them easier to be around, and easier felt like safer. That lesson doesn't stay in childhood. It follows them into every relationship they have as an adult, into workplaces where they apologize for contributions that deserved confidence, into friendships where they take responsibility for other people's moods, into relationships where they say sorry after arguments, even when they were the one who was hurt. And here's what that costs them. Over time, constant apologizing quietly erodes something, their own sense of where they end and other people's feelings begin. When you apologize for everything, you start to believe you are responsible for everything. Other people's moods, other people's reactions, the general comfort level of every room you walk into. That is an enormous weight to carry, and it never actually works, because no amount of apologizing can guarantee that the people around you will never be upset. So the anxiety doesn't go away. The need to apologize just gets stronger. there's also another cost that's harder to see. When you apologize constantly, people stop taking your apology seriously. The word loses its weight. And when you actually need it to land, when something genuinely goes wrong and you want someone to feel that you mean it, it gets lost in all the noise of every sorry that came before it. And yet, there's something worth understanding about people like this. The impulse behind the apology is not something to be ashamed of. It comes from a genuine desire to maintain harmony, to protect the people around them from unnecessary pain, to be someone who causes as little disruption as possible. Those are not small things. In a world full of people who don't think twice about the impact they have on others, someone who thinks about it constantly is rare. The sensitivity is not the problem. The problem is when that sensitivity turns into a belief that their own comfort, their own needs, their own feelings are always less important than everyone else's. Because that belief isn't true. It just feels that way after years of practicing it. Of course, like most traits, there's a balance. Genuine apologies are one of the most important things a person can offer. The ability to recognize when you've caused harm, to take responsibility for it honestly, is a sign of real emotional maturity. But an apology only means something when it's connected to something real, when it's offered because something actually happened, not because you're afraid of what might. The goal isn't to stop caring about how you affect other people. That care is part of what makes you who you are. The goal is to start recognizing the difference between the moments that genuinely call for an apology and the moments that call for you to simply take up your space without apologizing for it. You're allowed to have needs. You're allowed to ask questions. You're allowed to exist in a room without preemptively asking permission. So if you're someone who apologizes for everything, if sorry is the first word out of your mouth before you've even assessed the situation, if you've ever apologized for something and immediately thought, why did I just say that? You're not weak. You're not a pushover. You're someone who learned very early that keeping the peace was your responsibility. It wasn't. And it isn't now. The most powerful sorry you will ever say is the one you actually mean. Save it for that. Now I'm curious about you. Do you find yourself apologizing before you've even decided if you did anything wrong? Or does sorry only come when you genuinely feel it? Because the psychology behind that difference reveals something fascinating about how we learn to manage other people's emotions long before we understood our own. And in the next video, we're going to explore something closely connected to this. The psychology of people who always need to have the last word. And once you understand it, you'll never see an argument the same way again. If this made sense, you're different. So like, share and subscribe.